training leaders in a digital age. Our main speaker tonight is Guy Mason. Guy is the lead pastor at City on a Hill Church in Melbourne, which also has a growing network of churches, including one in Brisbane now. Guy was telling me a moment ago that they're celebrating their 8th anniversary this Sunday at the Melbourne Town Hall. Like Pete Greenwood, Guy is someone who's using his gifts and training to serve God with great vision and energy. He's known for his passion for evangelism and his skill in presenting the timeless message of the gospel to the contemporary world. Guy is a graduate of Ridley and had finished before I arrived. So I can't take any credit. But as it turns out, we live quite close to each other, and I bump into him on occasion. So the last time I saw a Guy on the train, for example, one of us was reading our Facebook thread on the phone, and the other one was reading a 1,000-page plus hard copy of Les Mis. So even though Guy has a taste for the classics, he's still a very good person for us to be addressing this topic this evening, which is training leaders in a digital age. So would you welcome Guy Mason?
Well, thank you very much, Brian. It's such a joy and privilege to be with you tonight. When I caught up with Brian recently over a coffee and said, how could I serve you guys tonight? He said, Guy, you're the entertainment. So if I dance halfway through, you'll know why. I'm speaking tonight on leadership in the digital age, and it brought to mind a moment a couple of years ago where I walked into a local pizza shop and blast of the past saw the old ancient arcade game Frogger. Does anyone remember the game Frogger? A few hands. It's a 2D kind of game. You sit down to play it with a joystick and navigate this little frog across the road. Anyway, as I was looking at this little arcade retro game and lost in a moment of nostalgia, my 3-year-old son kind of barged past me and started swiping the screen with his hand. Why on earth is my son swiping this screen with his hand? Well, of course, that's the world that he has grown up in. A world that only knows touch screens and connectivity. I think I had at that point my first midlife crisis and realised that the world that I grew up in and the world that I now am in has changed dramatically. Bob Dylan was close. The times are not merely changing, though. They've been uprooted and turned inside out. That's true politically, economically, spiritually, and socially, but it is especially true digitally. As one writer said, the digital world did not exist a generation ago, and now it is a fundamental fact of life. The numbers are staggering. The World Wide Web was first invented in just 1989, but now reaches every continent and country, connecting over 3 billion users worldwide. Interestingly, the wall between the internet and the personal computer was broken down in 1994, and in that same year, the website count went from just 7,000, accessible by a few universities and research institutes, to 10,000. Suddenly, people could get information from anywhere, distribute it everywhere, and inquire upon everything. Today, the web includes 4.8 billion pages, with 10 new sites made every second. But of course, this is only the tip of the iceberg. Think for a moment the difference that the mobile phone has made in our world. It wasn't long ago that when you walked through the street that you did just that. You would walk and take in the scenery. Now you are instantly engaging online. When I walk from my home at Sir Garnet Road in Surrey Hills to the station at Chatham, I can download the latest album from an international artist. I can transfer funds through bank accounts. I can catch up on the latest goss at Ridley News. I can take a selfie, I can watch a few cat videos, and if I get so distracted that I miss my train, I can swipe my phone and call an Uber and it'll be there in 3 minutes. The times we are in have changed. I was in New York recently and I happened to stumble across this ancient invention known as the payphone, tucked away by a underground subway. I was so amazed by this blast from the past that I pulled out my iPhone and captured this image. There's a touch of irony there, isn't there, that it took this device to end it in that moment. But of course, an introduction about the digital age would not be complete without reference to the social media that has completely dominated our world, specifically and centrally Facebook. Launched in February 2004, Facebook, get this, now links over 1 billion users worldwide, with 500,000 new users every day. In Australia, we have more than 13 million active users, making us one of the heaviest users in the world. I recognise that calling people on Facebook users makes them sound like drug addicts, but perhaps that's not too far from the truth. According to a Nielsen report, the average Australian spends 1.7 hours on Facebook every day. There you go. Some of you are on it right now. You should repent. Add to that the thousands of tweets we tweet, the blogs we blog, the games we play, the pictures we post. We are now a virtual people where the line between the real world and the digital world is slowly being erased. Like Claire, one of my favourite movies was Back to the Future, the 1980s sci-fi classic where Marty McFly and Doc Brown travel to the future, specifically October 21, 2015. Which means that right now we are in the future. This is it. What did they predict of our times? Flying cars, of course, pizzas expanding in microwaves, clothes that dry automatically, and of course the famous hoverboard. Was Spielberg right? Well, in one sense, yes. The world of 2015 is radically different than the world of 1985, but it's different in a whole new and unexpected way. And that is what is both exhilarating and perplexing about our times. We are in a world that very few predicted, the change unprecedented, and our future wide open. And it does make us think, doesn't it, about the relevance of the church and our place in a dynamic and digital age. Here's my question. What does the future of Christianity look like? How do we stay true to ourselves while engaging in an ever-changing culture? And what I'd like to do is now offer 4 brief suggestions of what Christian leadership in the digital age may look like. First, we have a call to lead with authenticity. We have a call to lead with authenticity. One of the most common critiques Jesus made about the religious leaders of his day were their continual attempts to portray a holy and righteous life with their outward appearance. The clothes they wore, the words that they used, the prayers that they prayed didn't come from a love for God, but actually a love from man. Now, 2,000 years on, we have a lot of distance between those leaders, but I do wonder how different we actually are. It appears to me that the digital age has exposed yet again how easy it is for us to build our identity on how we look and what others like instead of who we truly are. It provokes that. It encourages us towards that end, to create our own profile. Sporty, wise, successful, attractive, religious. We create our own profile, craft our own posts, and filter our own images. What we want the world to see, we will share. What we don't want the world to see, we will hide. And the online world is a shiny world, a world in which people are always succeeding, travelling the world, reaching their goals, meeting new people, and living their best life now. In the words of the Lego movie, everything is awesome. But the reality is that life doesn't always go that way. That's not reality. And it's certainly true for the Christian life. Our prayer life is not as rich as that quote we posted last Tuesday. Our church is not as cool as our website. Our marriage is not as bright as our Instagram filter. And the one shot we got of our kids smiling was just one frame in a film strip of tantrums and disappointments. Now, the church can play that game. Of course, we can pretend like everything is awesome. Our churches are awesome. Our Bible colleges are awesome. Our leaders are awesome. Or we could try something different. What if Christian leaders inspired a movement of authenticity? What if we shared our joys and our pains? What if we utilised online platforms to tear down our masks and share the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between? That's number one. Second, we have a call to lead with love. We have a call to lead with love. Love is not an optional extra for Christian leadership. It is at the core of our faith and witness. As the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians, if I have the best website known to man and it's shared by 1 billion bloggers but have not love, I am nothing. I think we'd all agree, wouldn't we, that there are great strengths of the digital revolution in connecting us with the world. We can share ourselves, we can share our message with more people in more places than ever before, and we should celebrate that. I know our church regularly uses Facebook, Twitter, Instagram to share our vision and to tell the story. We've put a lot of thought into developing a dynamic website. We developed digital books to teach alongside our teaching series, which have since been used by other churches, both in Australia and indeed across the world. We had one church who translated an entire sermon series into French so that they could share it with their community in Quebec. At our Sunday services, we encourage people to sign up to our gospel communities using iPads at the welcome table. We put up hashtags during our teaching so that people can engage digitally with the message of our culture, and we thank God for that. We love also that we're able to put our messages online free of charge, videos so that people can watch and share. I was encouraged to hear of our last sermon series that was aired in 42 different countries, including China, Malaysia, France, as well as some remote countries, such as the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Hobart. We thank God for that. Just as the printing press granted the generation of the Reformation unprecedented opportunities to communicate their message, the digital revolution presents today's believers with tools, platforms, and opportunities that previous generations of Christians could not have imagined. Christian leaders should be exercising stewardship in new opportunities to learn, to teach, to study online, recognizing that no generation before us has had such rich opportunities. But of course, the digital revolution presents a paradox. Increased connection does not always equate to increased community. Digital engagement does not always equate to genuine discipleship. I think one of the real challenges is that our screens are now filled with so much connection, activity, and news that we might actually miss the real needs of our real friends and perhaps our real church. As a wise friend said recently, we can be so focused on being high-tech that we miss the call for high-touch. And I think we also need to own the fact that it's not only the limitations of the online world, but the ways in which the digital age are now disrupting our offline world as well. I was on holidays with my wife some years back, and I remember at the evening walking past Starbucks, and there was a family having dinner at Starbucks, which is curious in and of itself. Anyway, And I kind of zoomed in on this particular family, and there was a dad and a mum and a little girl. But what kind of stopped me in my tracks was this. The dad had his white iPhone like this. iPad, it's that big. It's an iPad. And he's zoned in like this. And then the mum is doing the exact same thing on her iPad, zoned in doing this. And in between is this 6-7-year-old girl doing this with nothing. No interaction, no engagement, no conversation, no connection, just a blank stare looking at screens. And I think that's something of a picture of our world today. That disconnection. I know some of my mates have got this unique ability now to have a conversation with you at the same time they're sending a text message. It's skillful, it's impressive, but isn't it a reminder that we're not always present? We're not always there. There's a paradox, isn't it? We're the most connected generation that the world has ever seen, yet do we really know community? Are we connected? I think as Christian leaders, we have a huge opportunity right here. A huge moment, in fact, in history where we can teach people about the beauty of real community and life-on-life relationships. That our gospel is not one only of words, but word made flesh. The gospel is of a God who dwelt among us. I'm really excited by the online learning at Ridley Melbourne. I believe it's a fantastic initiative and is essential in developing the next generation of leaders. In fact, I believe that the church is at its best when it's leveraging the latest technology to advance the word of Christ. And at the same time, I would encourage you to continue in lifting up the value of loving communities. Innovate with technology. Innovate in love. And I know I personally have deep and enriching friendships with classmates and lecturers as a result of my time here at Ridley. Moments I could go up and talk to the lecturer and ask questions or share some struggles or just sit down and pray. I'm thankful that at Ridley we can discover truth but also encounter love. Number 3. Third, we have a call to lead with wisdom and discernment. Wisdom and discernment. The digital revolution, friends, has radically increased the amount of stored information that is now available at our fingertips. According to Eric Schmidt, the CEO of Google, every 2 days, we create as much information as we did from the dawn of civilization until 2003. That's something like 5 exabytes of data. You say, Guy, what is 5 exabytes of data? I have no idea. I don't want to see it come back on my mobile bill, though. That sounds like a lot. It's going to put the cap over the limit. Right? Think about that quote. Every 2 days, we create as much information as we did from the dawn of civilization until 2003. And it's not only the sheer volume of data, but the change in the way we now seek knowledge and understand truth. Instead of heading to libraries or sitting under the wisdom of a mature and certified teacher, we just head to Google. Or better yet, have a chat with Siri. The internet is the wild west of information, where there's little distinction and direction of what is helpful and what is true and what is false. Authority and credible sources no longer come with a degree, a person's age, or a title, but with the number of hits and shares your article receives. So this presents a delicious challenge to the Ridley faculty. In part, it's an invitation to keep writing and developing great thinkers and authors. In this room are some extremely gifted men and women, and we need their voice to be heard. We don't need more noise, but more insights and wisdom that cuts through and makes a difference. But another key part to play relates to the need for discernment. In a supermarket of information, we need to help people distinguish fact from fiction, truth from lies, the irrelevant and wasteful from the important and crucial. Throughout a 3 or 4 year degree, there's only so much information that can be passed on. But what I've valued is not so much hearing what to think, but how to think. Like a tour guide in a city, we need to raise up men and women who can help the next generation navigate the complexities and the glory of our digital world. And number 4, we have a call to lead with integrity. A call to lead with integrity. The digital age, friends, has increased the immediacy and secrecy of sin. Take, for example, the rise of pornography. There is a certain craftiness of the digital age that has brought the temptations of the world into the privacy of our personal computer. In previous years, It would have taken a very concerted effort for any man to wander through a dark alley and open the doors to a strip bar. Today, the brothel is in his bedroom. A study by the Barna Group found 77% of Christian men aged between 18 to 30 view pornography at least once a month. And upwards of a third of all Christian men view it daily. That's staggering. That's an epidemic that devalues and dehumanizes women, an epidemic that tears marriages apart, an epidemic that is crippling the faith of many. Friends, leadership in the digital age will need to guard their online life closely, sharing their online history with trusted friends, establishing clear walls to prevent access to certain sites, having an open door policy that allows other leaders, husbands, wives to review their activity. We need to be honest that the struggle is real and our call is to flee the domains of darkness and to walk in light. Leaders in the digital age will also need to teach their flock that before God, what they do online is just as important as what they do offline. Leaders in the digital age will also need to be equipped to shepherd men and women with grace and love as they deal with the fallout of their sin. And above all, leaders in the digital age must uphold and celebrate the glory of God. In Bruce Marshall's book, The World, the Flesh and Father Smith, he says this: "The young man who rings the bell at the brothel is unconsciously looking for God." Our role as leaders is to help people see that they were made for something much more than sex or an online affair or whatever scandalous activity the online world offers. They were made for God. God and His goodness is not found in darkness. No, we were made for the light. As I finish, I want to conclude by briefly talking about the crucial role of Ridley Melbourne. I've already touched on the ways Ridley can serve today's leaders for tomorrow's world, but I want to finish by sharing how Ridley has personally served me. These are building blocks that have shaped my life and ministry, and I believe will be essential in shaping the leaders to come. First, I'm thankful to Ridley for the way in which it has anchored me in the Word. As we look at the ministry of Christ and the leadership of the early church, we see an uncompromising commitment to the Scriptures. As the Apostle Paul said, "I did not shrink back in teaching you the whole counsel of God." Paul and the early church was marked by word ministry, whether teaching before crowds or going from house to house, one to one. The Bible was always open and the Scriptures were taught. So no matter where the digital revolution takes us, Ridley Melbourne must continue to equip the saints with the Word for the work of ministry. Together with the local church, we need to raise up men and women who treasure the timeless truth of Scripture and can communicate its glory in timely ways. In addition, I'm also thankful for the encouragement I've received at Ridley to engage our surrounding culture as thoughtful missionaries. The Apostle Paul, who taught in the temple, was also teaching and engaging in the marketplace. He didn't just wait for seekers to come to him. No, he brought the message of Christ to them. With the digital age upon us, we too must be engaged in our world, whether offline or online. Now, will there be a place for online church? Discipleship via virtual realities, sharing our faith via holograms across the world. Who knows? But we need thinkers, missiologists to explore these questions and pioneer new ways to connect our world with the message of Christ. Just as the missionaries of old traveled to new lands and reached new people, so we need missionaries who can discover the many platforms, speak the new language, and convey the truth and love of Christ. Albert Mohler says this: While we are right to prioritize real face-to-face conversations and to find comfort and grounding in stable authorities like the printed book, the digital world is itself a real world, just real in a different way. Real communication is happening in the digital world, on the web and on the smartphone, in your pocket. Real information is being shared and globally disseminated faster than ever before. Real conversations are taking place through voice, words and images, connecting people and conversations all over the world. If the leader is not leading in the digital world, his leadership is, by definition, limited to those who also ignore or neglect that world. And that population is shrinking every minute. The clock is ticking. Friends, we can't retreat from culture. We can't hide under the covers. We are to herald the rule and reign of Christ in every sphere of life. I love that quote from Abraham Kuyper. He says this: "There is not a square inch in the whole domain of our human existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, 'Mine.'" And that includes the internet. Finally, number 3, Ridley has helped me to put my highest confidence not in myself, not in innovation, not in culture, but in the gospel of Jesus, which is powerful to save. That's where our hope is tonight. In the gospel of Jesus, which is powerful to save. Years ago, I remember when one of the versions of iPhone came out. It must have been, I don't know, version 5, 6, who knows. And I remember, there's always the live cross to the first person who buys the latest iPhone, and there's a huge line of people, and this young kid who got the first iPhone, and there was a reporter interviewing him, and he was excited, and she's excited, and we're excited. And in his enthusiasm, he opens up his white box, and out flew the iPhone, kind of in slow motion, smacking on the cement below. And the thousands of people go, "Ooh, look at this." It was like disaster moment. And it was telling. I mean, it's humorous for us, sad for him, but it was a telling moment. Technology has not just connected us in new ways, it's shown us who we truly worship, where our hope is, what we think will actually rescue us, what we believe will take us to the promised land. No. Jesus is our Savior. He is our hope. The digital revolution is not our Savior, nor is it our end, because this world belongs to Jesus, and it's in His name that we are saved. So let's continue to trust in Jesus. Let's continue to put our hope in Him. Let's use whatever means and media possible to introduce our world to the beauty, the truth, and indeed the relevance of Jesus. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.